welcome to another exciting episode of Nerd Central. I'm Krista Ott.
And I'm Shannon Clement. Big thanks to Andy for filling in for me last week. We have our next installments of Dragon Corner, Heart of the Cards, Look Back, and Dead on Arrival.
We also have a very special guest to battle what is the best ranger in the Power Rangers universe on Showdown.
But first, let's talk about the news of the week. Netflix is at it again. The service has granted Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle a limited theatrical release starting November 29th. If you live in Los Angeles, New York City, San Francisco, and London, you'll be able to see the retelling of Rudyard Kipling's tale from the eyes of Andy Serkis. The rest of us will get to see the film when it hits Netflix on December 7th. This announcement comes as Netflix is also gearing up for 5 new anime series. 2 of them will come from established franchises. Those are Pacific Rim and Altered Carbon. Pacific Rim is a 2-film franchise about big robots called Jaegers facing off against giant monsters called Kaiju. The most recent film released earlier this year. Altered Carbon is a Netflix exclusive series that debuted earlier this year and follows a prisoner who's put into a new body to solve a murder to gain his freedom. No news on when any of this series will drop, but we will be sure to let you all know when it does.
And with that, let's take it to Dragon Corner and Heart of the Cards. Take it away, guys.
Hello and welcome back to Dragon Corner. We've covered life, death, metaphysics, biology, and history, so I feel like it's time to talk about setting. Dragon Ball takes place on Earth, which is also referred to as Dragon World. Earth is planet 4032 Green 877, North Area, Edge of Universe 7. That's right, it's like Texas. You want to go anywhere interesting, you gotta drive through the whole northern quadrant. The Earth is divided into 43 sectors, but the entire planet has long been ruled by a constitutional monarchy, save for King Piccolo's short stints as planetary dictator. This is likely because at some point a long time ago, one of the wishes Shenron granted was for someone to become king. The current ruler is the exceptional King Furry. Not even the first Dog King. Despite Goku's defeat of King Piccolo and incredible performances in the World Martial Arts Tournament, including turning into a giant gorilla, getting engaged in the ring, and a title win in the 23rd that vaporized the stadium, most of the world believes that Gohan's father-in-law, Mr. Satan, winner of the Sans Goku 24th World Martial Arts Tournament, is the champion of Earth, often erroneously crediting him for the defeat of threats like Beerus and Cell. But King Furry knows. He knows. Dragon World is loosely based on the 16th century Chinese legend Journey to the West, which is one of the 4 great classical novels of Chinese literature, and also features other fantasy tropes. In early Dragon Ball, it is not uncommon to see magical items, anthropomorphic talking animals, mythical creatures, dinosaurs, demons, monsters, or human psychics, like martial arts masters, sages, witches, and the like. Although much of the series holds an old world's charm like Avatar: The Last Airbender, it does feature modern conveniences like television and motor vehicles, advanced architecture, and the signature product of Capsule Corporation, the capsule, capable of storing pretty much anything, from refrigerators to hover cars to buildings. So while space and time travel aren't heavily featured until Goku is an adult, they don't exactly come out of left field. Capsule Corp is owned by the Briefs family, and innovation is largely led by Bulma, a childhood friend of Goku, and Vegeta's wife. Bulma is a mainstay of the series, often inventing useful gadgets to supplement Goku and Vegeta's fight everyone that gets in the way lifestyle. Her most notable inventions are the Dragon Radar, which can locate Dragon Balls based on a faint electromagnetic pulse they emanate, and the Time Machine. These advanced technologies also contribute to Dragon World's general ignorance of the aliens living amongst them, as they often blame odd occurrences on special effects or Capsule Corp's experiments. Another example of advanced technology in the series are Dr. Giro's androids, which range from thinking, feeling intelligences like androids 8 and 16 to modified human cyborgs like Krillin's wife and brother-in-law, androids 18 and 17, to the Frankensteinian monstrosity that is Cell, a biologically engineered life form created using the genetic material of powerful Saiyans, humans, Namekians, frost demons, and several other life forms. So really, Dragon World is a mishmash of sci-fi and fantasy, whatever Toriyama needs it to be for the story. It's magical, it's grounded, it's futuristic, but also classical and full of natural beauty. It has real issues, but isn't bogged down by a background of political conflict. Earth has one hero, one ruler, and one guardian. And most importantly, Earth has Goku. Tune in next time for more Dragon Corner.
Hello and welcome to Nerd Central's Heart of the Cards with your host Bradley Justice. I will be taking a deep dive into the anime juggernaut that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Or what I like to call the Friendship Show.
Oh no, he can't be!
This fusion of friendship is gonna conquer you once and for all!
This week I'll be discussing Season 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. This season was lackluster. It did have some moments like the introduction of a new character in Astra Phoenix and some really good side plots, but a lot of this season was just very flat for me. It starts out when pro duelist and one of the most famous people in the world, Astra Phoenix, challenges Jane to a duel and loses the duel to learn Jane's strategies. Aster, without having any knowledge of it, was working for the main antagonist, Sartorius, who wanted to use Aster to help take over the world via mind control. This season was a rough one. I didn't like the ongoing plot of Sartorius mind-controlling people to be part of his cult called the Society of Light. It just seemed very dull and boring. I mean, last season we had people almost dying and brothers almost being sacrificed. That's a lot more intimidating than mind control. Besides the main arc of the season, one of the things I really enjoyed was the side plots. Zane becoming an underground duelist and releasing his dark side, and Astra Phoenix finding out what happened to his dad and how his dad was murdered. Oh, and let's not forget one of the most badass things ever done in a Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game, a zero-turn kill, when Sartorius was able to wipe out his opponent without even having a turn, triggering one of the rarest and most improbable things ever done.
He won in just one turn.
Not quite. Sartorius never had a turn, so he won in 0 turn.
Tune in next week as I get very passionate about the so-called ending to the GX series. This has been Heart of the Cards with Bradley Justice. Stay tuned for more Nerd Central.
Thanks, guys. When we come back, we will talk about The Merc with the Mouth, a revival of beloved DreamWorks franchise, and a heartfelt farewell.
Plus, our next installments of Look Back and Dead on Arrival. You're watching Nerd Central on KNWT Channel 8. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Nerd Central. Let's talk about that heartfelt farewell. Ever since San Diego's Comic-Con this summer, we have known that Andrew Lincoln's time on The Walking Dead was coming to a close. His final episode aired on November 4th, and with it, the best rating since the premiere a month ago. Lincoln did not leave fans empty-handed as he wrote a letter thanking the fans who stuck through the 8+ seasons with his character. He wrote, quote, "Thank you for coming with us on this journey, for the 9 years of fear, heartache, anger, and let's face it, guts you've shown by making it through these 115 episodes and counting," end quote. However, this is not the end of Lincoln's character Rick Grimes, as he is signed on to play the character in multiple film projects. The Walking Dead's Chief Content Officer Scott Gimple will be writing the script of the first project that will continue the story of Grimes and is scheduled to begin production as early as next year.
In animated news, our favorite lovable ogre is getting a reboot. Chris Meledandri, the man behind the Minions franchise, has been tapped to oversee the revival of both Shrek and Puss in Boots. Both DreamWorks and Illumination, the animated studio behind the Minions, are owned by Comcast. The The reboots will still be handled by DreamWorks Animation. Meledandri would like to bring back Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Antonio Banderas as Shrek, Donkey, and Puss in Boots, respectively, for the reboot. No news yet on when this reboot will go into production, but when we find out, we will be sure to let you all know.
In comic book film news, we knew the Merc with the Mouth was getting an edited down version of his most recent film. We now have our official title and release date for it. The film will be called Once Upon a Deadpool. This version of the film is touting 15 minutes of new footage. The film will release on December 12th, but only will run through Christmas Eve. So if you want to watch this version in theaters, you will only have 12 days to do so. There is something inspiring with this release. With each ticket purchased, $1 will be donated to a charity we cannot say on TV. Let's just say it's an F word and cancer is the charity. We will let you fill in the blanks. Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool himself, has stated that the donations were a condition of us getting this PG-13 cut of the film. Reynolds also dropped the poster for the film with Deadpool on the back of a reindeer with Fred Savage. If you want to see Deadpool once more this year and want to donate money to charity, Once Upon a Deadpool might just be your cup of tea.
Now let's take it to our next installments of Look Back and Dead on Arrival. It's all yours, Mikey and Cody.
Hello, and welcome to Look Back, a retrospective on shows that I used to love to shows that I love in the present day. I'm Mikey, and this week, I've had enough of these kids shows. And I think it's about time we got a little bit mature with our show selection. So, let's begin with The Simpsons. If you have kept even half an eye on television in the past 30 years, you will know about this show. It's no fluke that Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie have become household names, and their stateless town of Springfield is one of the most popular places on television. As of November 2018, The Simpsons are on their 30th season. Not third, 30th. That is a very long time. And for a show to be around that long, they have to be doing something right. So every episode, the opening comes on, and Bart is writing down lines for punishment. Lisa tries to play the saxophone. Marge tries to buy Maggie at the supermarket, and Homer almost gets run over. But of course, these characters aren't even a quarter of why the show is so good. The other 3/4 are all about the other characters, and there are characters, and characters, and more characters. It's basically impossible to count all of them if you want to keep your sanity. Yet, throughout the entire series, the recurring characters have become almost as well known as the main family. Whether it be the
Excellent
Mr. Burns, or the murderous Sideshow Bob. Every major character has an episode dedicated to their problem. In terms of plots, this show goes all over the place, and while it focuses on one character mainly, some other subplots are created. In terms of outside the TV show, Fox has everything. From, in my opinion, the best TV show video game ever, to a large amount of toys, and a wildly successful movie, The Simpsons has expanded its reach to multiple different mediums. Now, I will be honest, I started watching the show when I was too young. Now, it's not as inappropriate as other adult cartoons, but it's still not right for kids. And when I was younger, the jokes honestly went over my head. But now, watching it back again, I realized I saw some pretty messed up stuff. But in all honesty, that's what you want from adult cartoons. And compared to Family Guy and South Park, this is nothing. Next week, I'm gonna change it up a bit. I'm not going into one show, I'm going into multiple that don't make the cut for their own segment. Keep watching Nerd Central.
Hello and welcome to Dead on Arrival, where the shows of one season or less get analyzed by the man who has reverse Benjamin Button disease, Cody Nance. Prepare to boo me really quick. I have not watched The Office. But I really like Rainn Wilson. But Cody, how can you possibly like Rainn Wilson if you haven't seen his performance as Dwight in The Office? Well, because I saw him in the show that you didn't support, person who sounds exactly like me. Today we are talking about Backstrom. Backstrom is a cop show taking place in Portland, Oregon, starring Rainn Wilson as Everett Backstrom. What's so special about it? Well, Backstrom's methods are interesting. See, every time a new suspect pops up in a case, he says something like,
"I'm a senator burying my son, the drug dealer."
And then he pretends to be that person for a few hours to get in the mindset and understand their perspective. When Backstrom is himself, he is best described as if Dr. House was a cop. Damn, I really want to see that now. Rainn Wilson isn't the only sitcom star in this beauty though. Enter Sarah Chalke, aka Elliot from Scrubs, as Backstrom's ex-fiancée. Her role basically boils down to always being upset about Backstrom's alcoholic tendencies. You guys ready for a pun? Because this ragtag police force is in good hands with the Allstate guy as their lieutenant. Backstrom can go from funny to dramatic to depressing all in one episode, and it is executed shockingly well. Sounds great, right? So why was it canceled? Well, according to Rainn Wilson himself, it's because they were on a poor time slot and just nobody would ever really give it a chance. And because of that, I gotta say, from Dead on Arrival on Nerd Central, this is Cody Nance saying, I am a bird now.
Thanks, guys. Some more news for you guys. The DC Universe streaming service isn't stopping with Titans. Back in May, they announced a Swamp Thing series on the service. Now, we have our actors to take on the role. Andy Bean has been cast to play Alec Holland, and Derek Mears as Swamp Thing. Holland is a biologist first introduced in Swamp Thing #1 in 1972, who investigates a disease infecting a local town. It brings him to a swamp which swallows him up. When he emerges from the swamp, he becomes the protector of the town, known simply as Swamp Thing. The series is scheduled to drop sometime in 2019.
In Star Wars news, another live-action television series for the Disney streaming service simply known now as Disney Plus is coming. Diego Luna is set to reprise his role of Cassian Andor set before the events of Rogue One. Since you know Andor dies at the end of the film, spoilers! The series will go into production sometime next year with a release date not yet announced. The series will follow Andor on his daring missions to restore hope to a galaxy under the tight grip of the Galactic Empire. The Force is strong with Disney Plus.
That's all the news we have for this week. You can get caught up on all of our previous episodes on the KNWT YouTube page.
Also, follow KNWT on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and follow Nerd Central on Twitter at nerd_central_TV. Before we go, we here at Nerd Central are excited for Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, but we are a little fuzzy on what happened in the first. Raylan, can you help us out?
Good evening, my name is Raylan, and the next Fantastic Beasts movie, Crimes Against Grindelwald, comes out this Friday, November 16th. And to get you ready, I'm going to give you a breakdown of the first movie, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, in 35 seconds. Let's go. The movie starts off with Newt Scamander, a magizoologist arriving in New York City to find new beasts to add to his magical suitcase. He soon gets in trouble with the Auror named Tina Goldstein, who tries to turn him in for his collection of magical beasts. Oh, and because they brought a no-mage, aka Melgle, named Jacob Kowalski into the mess. Later we find out that this guy named Credence is an obscurial, a parasite that's formed within someone where their unused magic is repressed. These things have a lot of power and it's literally destroying the city. We have this other guy named Graves who tries to use Credence's power, but Newt comes in, saves Credence and the city, while also finding out that Graves is actually this dark wizard named Grindelwald. And that is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Now you are all caught up and ready to see Fantastic Beasts: Crimes Against Grindelwald coming out this Friday, November 16th.
Thanks, Raylan. After the break, we decide what is the best Power Ranger.
We will be right back.
and welcome to Nerd Showdown, the part of Nerd Central where we battle it out on a particular topic we have no business debating. I'm your host, Evan Van Zant, and with the Power Rangers celebrating their 25th anniversary, we ask the question, what is the best Ranger in the Power Rangers universe? With me today, I have the creator of Mighty Morphin Madness and Northwest Alum, the one and the only Zach Brown.
Howdy.
And Northwest Missourian reporter James Christensen.
Hey, everyone.
Zach, why don't you start us off? Why do you believe the 6th Power Ranger is the best?
Well, so the 6th Ranger, a little backstory, usually every season of Power Rangers usually start with 5 or 3 Rangers. And after the 5th Ranger, the 6th Ranger comes, and they kind of come in halfway through the season. So it's kind of a nice refresher to have a new character, new person to kind of talk about. And they usually have usually between 6 to 8 episode arc where it's all about them. They come around and they're, sometimes they're the bad or good, heel or face. But I like the 6th Ranger because Tommy Oliver, that's my main point. Tommy Oliver is considered the best Ranger in history. I mean, you could talk to tons of Power Ranger fans, but I think he's my favorite. Of course, a lot of people like him. He's been 5 total Rangers, 3 of them of which been the 6th Ranger, the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, and then the Black Dino Ranger, and he was the 4th Ranger of the 3. But I overall like the 6th Ranger. There's many reasons. Like, the first one is in Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, the Magna Defender, the original Red Ranger, he was the one that pulled the Quasar Saber out of the stone, and he died in a pit. We thought he died, but he came back as a 6th Ranger, and he was the brother of the Red Ranger. So that was a story, 6 episodes, all about the Magna Defender. And then another season I liked was in Power Rangers in Space, Zane. He was the Silver Ranger, but he got injured in battle protecting the Red Ranger, Andros. He got injured, so he had to be in a cryogenic freeze for 2 years, and that was kind of an interesting story because they were the 2 Rangers that fought all the evil before the other 4 came along. And so Andros was best friends with, Zane, the Silver Ranger's best friends with Andros, and they were, they really had a good team together. And then my last point I'd like to make is in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, the Titanium Ranger, Ryan, he was a character that Saban Entertainment created, because all Power Ranger footage of them in the costumes is when they're in Japanese footage.
The color I'm arguing on behalf of is the Blue Ranger, which aside from the Red Ranger has appeared in every single season of Power Rangers. It is one of only 2 colors to be featured in every single team, and typically exemplifies one of my favorite traits when looking at a Power Ranger as an intellect and just a general curiosity of the world around them. One of my personal favorites is Billy, the original Blue Ranger, and there's a piece of tech he created that without that, we'd have no communicators for the Power Rangers. It's without him that we see a lot of the technological advancements of the Power Rangers not being created during the Mighty Morphin phase. And typically throughout the rest of the series, the Blue Rangers tend to also focus on science and intellect and wisdom, and especially like Blue Power Rangers like Tori, you see a focus on nature and that sort of thing. And it's nice to see this intellectual base in the Power Rangers, because half the time you think it's just, oh yeah, they're fighting a monster, they're just gonna go do martial arts, some backflips and some kicks and whatnot. But with the Blue Ranger, you see an intellectual style, and they're actually okay, how do we defeat this monster? They're thinking, they're using their skills of critical thinking and the technology at their disposals to defeat the monsters that are being thrown at them. And like I said, the Blue Ranger is, aside from the Red Ranger, the one Ranger color that has appeared in every season of Power Rangers and is a consistent character throughout the entire franchise. And it is one that's by far one of the most popular, aside from probably the Red Ranger. It's one of the most consistent and popular Rangers throughout Ranger history. And there are so many unique Blue Rangers, and it's so much fun just to go through and see oh yeah, this is a connection to this character or to this one, and just see how they all interrelate. And it's so amazing to see that there's this base of intellect and wisdom within the Power Rangers.
So, I agree with James. Blue Ranger, I like the idea of the intellectual Blue Ranger. My issue with the Blue Ranger is I consider the Blue Ranger an afterthought. I feel like they are not written as well as all the other Rangers. I even say the Pink and Yellow Ranger could possibly argue as better characters than the Blue Ranger. The reason I say that is in 2 seasons, from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to Zeo, and then Power Rangers Turbo to Power Rangers in Space. The Red Ranger of those series, so Rocky for Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, he gets, I consider, demoted to the Blue Ranger, meaning he was not good enough to be the Red Ranger, so they had to put him in the blue costume to kind of get rid of him. And at that point, you know, they didn't kill Rangers, and so unless later in the season, so the characters like, well, we can't. The writers were like, well, we can't kill the Blue Ranger, the Red Ranger, so we have to put him in the blue costume. Same thing with TJ and Turbo. He was the second Red Ranger, and he gets demoted to the Blue Ranger in space. And so another demotion, it's like, well, we can't get rid of the character, so we have to put him in the blue costume. That's what I feel like. The Sixth Ranger, you know, sometimes they're the leader.
Because with the Sixth Rangers, with the exception of probably the Magna Defender and Tommy, the other Sixth Rangers just feel like an afterthought. I feel like if you look at them, most of them are throwaway characters. We really don't get to relate to them on a level that we do with the other Rangers, because like you said, they don't get introduced till the later part of the season. So like characters like Merrick in Wild Force and Zane in Space, we don't meet them till probably 2/3 of the way through the season, and at that point there gets such a sloppy backstory. It's like, okay, what the heck am I actually seeing here? And it's sloppy writing. Whereas the characters that are introduced at the beginning of the season, we get to actually see them develop as Rangers when they get their powers. We get to see them grow as Rangers. We get to see the everyday dynamic of these teenagers with attitude. But with the Sixth Rangers, it's just like, oh, we're running low on stuff. We're gonna throw in a silver or gold colored Ranger here just to pop things up. But it's like, it doesn't do much in terms of advancing the story. Like Gem and Gemma and RPM, worst Sixth Ranger ever. Like, they are by far the most annoying characters I have ever seen.
Overall, Tommy, best Ranger. Can't beat that. I mean, I know he agrees Tommy's the best one. Magna Defender, great as well. I mean, all I could say is that the Blue Ranger, you know, is an afterthought.
When you're thinking of like, okay, we're doing a 3-Ranger team, it's got to be red, blue, and some other color. Blue is there all the time. It is one of the Rangers we get introduced to right at the beginning. They exemplify wisdom and intelligence. And compared to the Sixth Ranger, they normally get the better writing because they're on screen longer, so they actually get to develop their characters and actually be a good character versus a character that's introduced in probably the last 10 to 15 episodes of the season that half the time is running away because they don't want to actually be a part of the team. They actually are there, they are fighting, they are developing the technology that they need to take down their villains and their monsters, and they are just exemplifying what it means to be a Ranger and doing what is best to save the world.
That's gonna do it for this week's showdown, and the winner is James by a hair.
Yes!
You can head to Nerd Central's Twitter to show your support for this week's showdown. Nerdmageddon is coming up next. You can check out the Missourian every Thursday during Student Media Day. See you next week on Nerd Central.